Fragments of silicon, guaranteed not to melt in the weather heat.
All right, welcome to another installment of Fragments of Silicon. Not gonna lie, it's been a messy week here behind the scenes. In fact, we weren't even sure we were going to have a show until a few hours ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, that means over to you, Petty, because you've got some splaining to do.
Yeah, my eye is still royally borked. I went to the ophthalmologist today, and it turns out I have an ulcer either on or in my eye. I'm not really sure how that works. All I know is it's part of the damage to my cornea. So they've given me some new eye drops to hopefully help with the infection that I still have. And also told me to just use the ointment that I was given from the ER just at night. So hopefully that helps fixes me up. You know, in a perfect world, my eye could be back to normal as soon as Sunday. Or worst case, I see the ophthalmologist on Tuesday and discuss where we're going from there, if it's still as bad. But the funny thing with eyes is they can heal rather quickly as long as there's not an infection raging in them.
On account of them being, important, probably.
Yeah. Well, they're mostly jelly.
I just mean that I imagine the ability of eyes to heal quickly was something that would be, selected for.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's because it's part of the face.
Mm-hmm.
It's a whole thing.
Yeah. But yeah, hopefully in a perfect world, everything will be healed up by the weekend, and this will all be something we can chuckle about next week.
I'm not that optimistic.
Yeah, I'm not either, but it's either go crazy or have some hope.
So,
as far as like other things, obviously still cannot really game much because hopefully the new drops help with the light sensitivity in the right eye so I can kind of play some games at least. Instead of, white flashes on my screen, might as well be a flashbang.
well, have they worked? Have you used them yet?
Yes. Is somebody listening to something?
No.
I'm hearing it, so it can't be me this time.
I don't pick up something.
And as far as yeah, hopefully my eye feels somewhat better so I can at least get Mewtwo in Violet. And I would like to try and do the Final Fantasy XIV Rising event just because, the big old celebration of 2.0 coming out. God, it's been 10 years. And yeah, I think that's it for me.
All right, Golix, it's your go.
We've been getting some late summer heat here the last couple of days, which has not been super fun. And at work, the process of packing up for the office move is entering its final stages, where apparently I'm going to be working from home uh, at least part of next week.
Have people started singing "It's the Final Countdown" yet, or is that coming soon?
I don't know how many people in the office are that musical.
Valid.
But yeah, so that's next couple of days are going to be going through the last bit of boxes that need to be, or the last bit of files that need to have certain signatures pulled because they can't legally be destroyed yet.
Or leave, or it's one of those they can't leave the office unless somebody knows what the hell's going on with them.
They also that, but they also can't be destroyed. Or they also we have to keep them, just on the off chance that the state needs to for something.
If they need to be audited or anything like that, I know that feel.
Anyway, so yeah, that's most of that. Otherwise, I'm looking forward to things kind of trying to go back to normal. I'm still not exactly sure what I'm going to do about parking, because the new place has a parking lot, but it closes at 5:30, and I usually work after that, so I may have to go and move my car. And it'll depend on how much parking is available in the city, how plausible that'll be. So
just park your car in the building, the office building.
Unfortunately, the ground floor of the building is a restaurant.
I'm not seeing your problem. Anyway.
Video game wise, yeah, it's been a bunch of stuff going on around the start of the first thing. There's a Pokemon Go event going on for the Paldea starters, and also I did take care of the Mewtwo event early because I have some friends online who helped me with that, but I'm trying to help other people with it. But doing it with randoms is pretty frustrating. We used a very difficult and weird strategy that we came up with on the first day, and then there's a much more reliable strategy, but I don't feel like tweaking my Mew. Anyway, Splatoon 3 had a big run last weekend and is having a Splatfest this weekend. I think there's a theory that they are that they had expected to have some of the DLC sooner than they do or something, so they're rearranging stuff or something. I don't know. But yeah, those got at the start of the new season, those got announced right one after the other, where they usually give quite a bit of time in between them, so I'm having to put in a decent amount of time on that. And I have started playing Tears of the Kingdom with my dad, which, as expected, is more challenging for him than Breath of the Wild was, because the control scheme is, it's not strictly speaking more complicated, but the more complicated parts of it are used more often.
Also a little more action-y than Breath of the Wild was.
It's not even, well, yeah, and again, his problems are that he's not good at using multiple buttons at the same time, and he's not good at controlling the camera while he's moving and stuff, and those are both kind of important. But yeah, in the old game, you did technically use a lot of these same combinations that you have to use now in Tears of the Kingdom, but there they were mostly just used for quick swapping between weapons and stuff, which was optional. You could just slow swap them. And here, that's how you fuse things onto your arrows as well. So, but it's going pretty well so far, I think. I can always help when he has trouble, but I'm also trying not to tell him exactly what to do, so. It's just a little bit hand twitchy sometimes when it's like, I could do this so much faster. And I have to remember that I had some trouble at the beginning too with remembering how to turn things while ultra handing them and some of the other things. So I'm not perfect either. And I think that's about it. Oh yeah, and the Pokemon friggin' DLC comes out not next weekend, but is it next weekend? Soon.
I thought it was next month, but it's soon.
It's the first one, yeah. Let's see, September 13th. So
Fuck, that's this weekend.
that is next Wednesday. So we'll see how it goes.
Mm-hmm.
Looking forward to that.
Indeed.
Although my favorite Pokemon, I think, is still not in.
Anyway,
I'm surprised they ever made a generation without Togepi. That's all.
all right. Guess it's my go.
Yep.
See, it's been a lot of balancing stuff behind the scenes this week because Petty's eye infection has been taking a toll on the production of the show in general.
Mm-hmm.
With him not being able to handle games, because we've had to push back the Quake 2 multiplayer thing twice now. Though
Yeah.
I suppose fortunate for that. Some guest re-switchings have enabled it to not fall too far away.
Right.
It's like weird. The same thing happened like twice, not in a row, but recently. Like people are not necessarily on vacation, but traveling. Needed their showtime rescheduled, and more often than not for Fragments here, it's hard to find a replacement on short notice.
Yeah.
Miss P,
Well, Wednesday
yeah.
at like 8 p.m. is not an easy time slot to fill.
9:30. Like it's more the line of work, the line we got here. Video game developers versus general entertainment.
Yeah, they're either asleep right now or they're in the middle of working because game devs are weird.
Well, it's that in the middle of working thing that's the big headache with doing the show.
Mm-hmm.
I asked Steven appearing on the program in November, and he said he was too swamped to do it. Understand? That is the answer I get. Not just from new potential people, but people we've had on the show multiple times. Right. Because making games is hard and time consuming.
And for a lot of people, this is their final push to get their end of the year projects out.
Yeah, so it can be a bit of a headache. Especially when it's when conventions and stuff are going on. Like PAX West just wrapped up, and we had Gamescom a few weeks ago. Anyway, so that's been my week. So, yeah, in trying to figure out what the hell to do today, landed on the Nintendo Switch Online, which just had probably it's one of its most random updates ever.
Mm-hmm.
Because Yeah, we got some imports, and also,
Who here remembers Quest for Camelot? Like, even the movie, never mind the friggin' Game Boy Color game.
Indeed.
I think people remember Quest for Camelot for that one song that was actually spawned from it.
I remember it for the chicken with an axe for a beak.
Yeah, that was voiced by Urkel. I've seen Quest for Camelot, but it's been...
Oh, no, I've seen it. I still barely remember it existed.
I think
Yeah.
theoretically we still have the VHS for it downstairs.
But genuinely considered to be one of the most random additions to, well, really any Nintendo retro service.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it almost feels like somebody just had it in their license pile and was like, "Oh yeah, here, let's throw this on there."
That's basically what happened.
Nobody actually wanted the license for this, so...
Well, it's... Okay. It's more... Nintendo actually published or co-published Quest for Camelot for the Game Boy Color back when it was new.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Nintendo had a lot of those on the Game Boy Color.
Yeah, just a lot of shovelware in general.
Yeah, but like Nintendo was like... like they are the publisher of like the Little Mermaid 2 pinball on the Game Boy Color. So that means that game could potentially become part of the Nintendo Switch Online.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I guess since we're on Quest for Camelot, we should start with Quest for Camelot.
Yeah,
I guess we're starting with Crypt Stars.
I can switch. It'll just take a second.
No. Yeah, this is a better game. But I guess we'll go with Quest for Camelot since we're on it.
Yeah.
Because I will give Quest for Camelot a bit of credit. Not much, but okay, just, blind thought. What would you think Quest for Camelot would be if you just saw the box on the shelf?
Platformer or possibly action RPG.
Match 3 puzzler. Wait, no, hold on.
Not 98.
Valid.
Later on, like if this came out in say 2018, sure. Like, or rather, this would be like a campaign in Candy.
That's a face.
Also, that's a font choice. I mean, I know it's not unique, but...
I'm like, yeah...
That's a graphics mode font. That is definitely not part of the GBA's usual typeset.
No, but I've seen it in other things. Usually things that are trying to look fantasy badly.
Yeah. Well, this isn't so much fantasy as ye olden times. I mean, it's
fantasy. It's got dragons. It's got magic.
Now, some of these stills actually look pretty good.
It's also Arthurian legend.
Yeah.
So, it's medieval times in general.
Yeah, but it's... Yeah.
Like, it's Arthurian legend. Very loose sense of the word, mind you.
I mean, it's not like there's a significant actual canon of Arthurian legend anyway.
Well,
there are a couple of books that are compilations or original stories that everyone more or less agrees on, but beyond that, like, distinctly you'll notice that the Once and Future King or the Morte d'Arthur or whatever do not mention Tom Thumb being one of King Arthur's knights, which is part of the Tom Thumb story.
This is one of those things,
and Lancelot's an original character donut steal from a French Arthur.
Yeah. I think Percival is as well.
Percival, I think, is older.
I might be thinking of Grail stuff. Because, like, the Grail and the Fisher King, are also French influences. Like,
and then Tristan and Isolde is part of Arthurian legend, in spite of being like the prototype of the whole Arthur, Lancelot, Guinevere thing.
that being said, there is there is no medieval tract that mentions a knight called Ruber.
Yeah, no. Well, my point was that this isn't the first thing to make a friggin' OC Donuts our original character villain in Arthurian times.
I like how high-minded this conversation got when we're talking about a game that looks like this.
Meanwhile, I'm over here playing Low Rent Legend of Zelda.
Actually, Low Rent Legend of Zelda was kind of the genre I hoped it was going to be.
It's the genre you got.
I understand that the game is probably terrible in many ways, but at least it's an appropriate genre. Unlike, say, Match 3 Puzzler or...
Yeah. Like, the Match 3 Puzzler didn't exist in 1998.
Okay, unlike Sokoban Clone.
I guess that's a bit more fair. Like, the dominant form of puzzle game in 98 is the Falling Blocks Puzzler. I mean, that could have a Match 3 element to it, but, what we think of today as the Match 3 puzzle game really got codified with Bejeweled in 2001, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
valid.
Although I suppose you could argue it kind of goes back to the Panel de Pon / Tetris Attack family.
Right, but that's still firmly in the Falling Block lineage, even if it's going from the upside down. But that's immaterial to what I was getting at, because the genre you'd think this game would be some sort of shitty 2D platform, because that's what you got 9 times out of 10. You got some either platform or like side scroller platforming may be optional kind of deal, but getting a Zelda-like overhead adventure game, if you will, wasn't common. Still isn't all that common for licensed games. I mean, really, I can think of only a few that did that, like Adventure Time. That being said, the chances of this actually being good went out the window because when you see who developed and co-published this title, that is Titus Interactive. Like,
they've done a good thing occasionally.
They've done a decent thing occasionally. Like, I hesitate to think of it like a game that would qualify as good. Like, and I guess that's kind of where Quest for Camelot here lies. It's not legendarily awful like some of the because Titus Interactive, they're probably most infamous as the publishers of and overall creators of Superman for the Nintendo 64. And if not that, then RoboCop for the Xbox. I'm like,
oh god, that's a hell I've wanted fucking purge from my memories. Thanks for that.
Yeah. Carmageddon 64. Like I said,
Okay, yeah, 64 was terrible, but regular Carmageddon isn't that bad.
Right. Like, also, I'm not sure if they had a hand in the Carmageddon game for the PlayStation. That was also awful. Roadsters for the Dreamcast was also pretty renowned for its shittiness. Not the worst on the Dreamcast. Not the worst racing game, in fact. My point is, Titus Interactive doesn't have quality to its name, even though they've been dead for nearly 20 years. Like, look, there's no critical reevaluation towards flying through ring as Superman. That's going to be a tedious, not fetch quest, but a tedious game mechanic, no matter how you slice it. And by that rubric, yeah, Quest for Camelot smelling like a rose here, in that it's just kind of inoffensively, blandly awful. At least, from what we can garner here, except for the artwork. Like, the actual art design of this is pretty shockingly putrid, as we've seen.
There are some of the stills that are range from, oh my god, how the hell, to, that's actually not too bad, to, oh sweet Jesus God, why?
But, just look at these SD characters here. Like, I feel like this is...
Yeah, no, the character sprites are pretty awful.
Yeah. Like... And it's probably going to be an eternal mystery why Nintendo had such faith in this game to, co-publish it back in the day. And more relevantly, throw it up on the Nintendo Switch Online. Because, okay, back in 98, they were making a bet. Okay? They were thinking Quest for Camelot's going to do big business. Because, when they picked it up, it hadn't come out yet. Granted, the actual release of Quest for Camelot was like 2 months after the movie. But we don't really have a detailing on why this game got delayed. Like, all we know is it came out a couple of months after the movie, which was not unusual for licensed fare.
Oh yeah,
but it's
day of licensed stuff was not guaranteed then.
Yeah, I'm like, that's more a thing in like the 2000s, like, or you would be timing, you would time this towards, if not like the it's in the theaters, like
VHS release or
yeah. It, like I said, they still had their deadlines to promotionally tie into stuff, but once again, it wasn't quite as tight. And also, we are talking about the Game Boy Color here.
Mm-hmm.
Not exactly the highest priority in terms of platform. But I suppose it should be noted that there is no other Quest for Camelot game. But I will also note that the conversation here has been talking around Quest for Camelot mostly because, well, once again, look at it. It's a Zelda clone, but it's just kind of doing everything perfunctory. Not awful. There's a reason why this game is just kind of forgotten, and everyone just reacted with a collective "huh?" This got added. It wasn't even a cry
the facing forward sprite on Kaylee here makes me think of friggin' South Park characters when they're upset.
Yeah.
I'm like.
Also, how the hell do you remember that dude's name?
It was in the text roll at the start of the thing.
Yeah. Plus, he could have looked it up. Like, I didn't remember the name of Ruber, but I have the Wikipedia entry on this game opened up here, so. Like, yeah. Anyway, there's just, when you get down to it, not a lot to say about this. It's not awful.
Yeah, the only remarkable thing about this game is and you put what game that apparently existed on the...
Yeah. Yeah, on the Game Boy Color. And, it's got people wondering if other random licensed titles are going to be coming to the Nintendo Switch Online. And I guess the answer is if they were published by Nintendo, maybe.
That game over screen.
I think this is a good point to switch to another game.
Yeah, that's valid. Oh God.
Yeah, because while this game is it's functional in its mechanics, it's just goddamn ugly to look at.
Yeah.
Anyway. Yeah, so I guess we're looking at some Kirby here. And we got Kirby Star Stacker / Kirby Super Star Stacker.
Cough, totally not Puyo, cough.
No,
this isn't the Puyo one. This is the Panel de Pon.
Yeah, that's...
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah. You're thinking of Kirby Avalanche, which has been on the... which I think... Super Nintendo NSO for quite a while now. It usually shows up pretty early. So Kirby Star Stacker / Super Star Stacker is a Japan only release because Nintendo of America stopped producing the Super Nintendo by the time that Nintendo Japan wanted this localized. Granted, we're talking about 1997, 98. So the Super Nintendo was pretty dead in the water by then.
Yeah.
And clearly wasn't worth porting to the Nintendo 64. Even though falling brick puzzles like this were not alien to the system, I think looking like this would have turned reviewers off.
Yeah, specifically at that time.
Yeah.
If this came out, if this was a modern release, people would be like, oh, hey, that's Kirby.
It's a Super Nintendo game, and people would have been calling it out for looking like a Super Nintendo game.
Yeah.
Because once again, you did have puzzle games on the Nintendo 64. In fact, one of the best is Pokemon Puzzle League. Pokemon Puzzle League isn't too far removed from the original Panel de Pon / Puzzle League / Tetris Attack.
Yeah.
But it does have more to it than the Super Nintendo game. It had the Pokemon Tower, and it had the 4-player mode.
Mm-hmm.
This is just straight. People call this Super Star Stacker because it appeared on the Super Nintendo, but it's not actually Super Star Stacker. It's just Star Stacker for the Game Boy, but in color. An actual Super Nintendo color, not Game Boy palette color. And it's got kind of the Kirby Dream Land 3 aesthetic going on here. But from what I understand, this is more port than a Super Nintendo version of Star Stacker. So if you played the Game Boy game, you played this. And I suppose that is another consideration. And this wasn't unusual for Nintendo either. Nintendo did handheld versions of their puzzle games all the time. Arguably going back to Tetris, But certainly, if we're talking about Nintendo-owned puzzle games, Dr. Mario, people tend to think of the the NES game there, but it also had a Game Boy version. It's just the Game Boy version doesn't get brought up much because very color-based. Anyway, in terms of the actual gameplay here, it's Star Stacker. It's perhaps less demanding than Puyo Puyo / Kirby Avalanche. Always kind of this game always kind of reminded me of Yoshi. For the NES and Game Boy. Maybe not as contrived. It's, it's a decent puzzle game. But and it also reminds me of Pack Attack. Pack Attack minus the strategy that game brought to the table. Not even kidding here. Because Pack Attack had the same kind of character matchup gimmick, except it aligned with the Pac-Man mechanics. Which means you had to stack ghosts together, and then you had to get Pac-Man, and then he'd gobble the ghosts. You see, there's a bit more thought than just match the characters.
Right.
It's not to say that there's no thought going on here. Just less thought than Pack Attack. No.
And maybe there's some nods Magical Drop hidden in there too, or whatever.
Possibly. I'm not sure how popular Magical Drop was at this point.
It was definitely popular in Japan, at least.
Yeah. But I'll also note that while the aesthetical choices do invoke Dreamland 3, the Animal Buddies suggest Dreamland 2. Because they've only got Rick, Coo, and Kine. Or if you're not, got Hamster, Owl, and Fish. Look, I got grading after a bit.
It did, yes.
The commentary this episode is going to be very free-flowing. Anyway, so I think that's good on Kirby Star Stacker. So let's shift to the next one.
Okay. Oh, no, wrong button.
No pun intended. I suppose, being in the session. And I guess worth noting Japanese text in this is minimal, but it's in the menus, so you might have a bit of difficulty navigating.
Yeah. I think Nintendo released a video, an English version of video how to play.
True, but the other two games are in the NES section of the NSO.
All right. Where is my NSO? Yeah, for some reason on Switch, these are 3 different apps.
Yeah.
That's presumably the app is where they keep the emulator and it keeps the size down or something. I don't know.
That's it's a very Nintendo way of approaching things, massively inefficient. I hit a download bar.
Yup. I forgot the other ones were on NES. Luckily, NES ROMs don't take too long to download.
That's handy. And thankfully, size is not a big consideration.
Well, I think I have 128 gigabyte SD card in there, so size shouldn't be a problem.
I mean the games themselves, because one of these is probably the most advanced NES game ever released, or if not that, certainly one of them.
So which one are we looking at?
That'd be Joy Mech Fight.
This is the one that Sukapon came from.
Yes. AKA that really annoying assist trophy in Smash Brothers.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least one of the annoying ones.
I think this is the right one.
Hi, Kunio.
No, that's the other one.
Oh.
That's the Kunio-kun title.
Oh. Again, I blame
Joy
hard
Mech
to
Fight
see.
is the one with the pink blob thing on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that one.
Yeah, I mean, I guess since we're...
I already
That's
clicked.
That's Sukapon.
Wait, this one?
Mm-hmm.
Bro, I can barely see. What do you want from me?
I'm
not saying you should know. I was just saying.
So
do you have your eye patch on?
Yeah, but it's still really hard to see on my other eye.
Yeah.
And this text is real small.
That's the correct one. The beige vertical one.
This one?
The second one?
Yeah.
Yeah, one.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure you had it right.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, it's rolling now, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, this is Joy Mech Fight. Which, once again, this is a very late stage NES title. Like, I want to say it came out in 93. Yeah, here we go. May 21st, 1993. So that puts it on the ending scale of the Nintendo library. There was still a fair amount of games that came out for the NES, surprisingly.
Yeah, I'm not sure how they did this in code, but it can't be easy on the NES to have had all of those little parts of a dude moving independently.
I'm like, that's actually a bit of trickery that the NES had been doing for years. I'm like, also, the key is usually the chipset.
That's true.
Like, because
this is a very fast and fluid fighting game for 8-bit.
Yeah. I mean, just the fact that this is a one-on-one fighting game for an 8-bit system is kind of amazing on its own. And I suppose another question that would come up here is, why did Nintendo program this for the Nintendo Entertainment System when, the Super Nintendo was right over there? I think that comes down to the team involved, because this was the brainchild of Nintendo R&D 1, aka like the old guard. AKA, like, this was the division that helmed a lot of the Game Boy development software, whereas Super Nintendo stuff that tended to be EAD stuff. Miyamoto's division.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and near as I can tell, this game was the brainchild of, like, I don't want to say like junior development people, but it came about because, according to Wikipedia, because of a programming seminar. Which sounds like the kind of thing that would target the Nintendo, the 8-bit system, because of the familiarity aspect.
Mm-hmm.
This is why we got a lot of endgame Nintendo Entertainment System games. I mean, in fact, this is how we get a lot of, insert system here, end of life games. It a lot of the time it is because of the install base, but it's also because the development people, they know the hardware and they know how to get the most out of hardware. And, that brings us back to Joy Mech Fight here. Because, you want to talk about getting the most out of hardware. It's this game. It's one of those games that kind of defies existence. Like it would almost pass as a Super Nintendo title. I say almost because as impressive as the actual graphical fidelity looks, it still looks like a Nintendo Entertainment System game or a family computer game.
Yeah, the graphics still aren't anything to write home about. It's the way they move.
Yeah. It's the color palette that really gives it away. Like,
particularly the depth of shading or lack thereof.
Right.
Definitely does not look like something that could have been made with Mode 7.
Like, that's another thing. Like, if this were a Super Nintendo title, there'd probably be a lot more scaling going on.
Yeah, that's partly what I mean, because they would have leveraged the hell out of Mode 7 if this was on the Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
Still, it's impressive what you can do without actual sprite rotation.
Yeah. Also worth noting that apparently the roster here reached up to 36 playable fighters.
Lord.
Yeah.
That's like 4 times as much as are in Street Fighter, I think, or Street Fighter 2, the original.
The largest roster in a fighting game until King of the Fighters 98. Which had 38 playable characters.
Damn.
So it held on to that record for about 5 years. So to have, though, I know how they got away with this. It's nothing too impressive when you know the secret. That is,
I assume a lot of the characters reuse parts.
Yep. They're reskins. It's basically the same underlying parts, different skins. How else are you going to do 36 characters on the Nintendo Entertainment System?
Yeah, especially, it probably is one of their beefier cartridges, but it's still, an NES cartridge.
Yeah. Once again, the language barrier here is minimal, in the sense that you might have some problems navigating, but, I suppose there is a story here, but it's a fighting game, and I don't know, it's just like Joy Mech Fight.
Somebody built some mechs. They're going to fight joyfully.
Yeah. Like, Joy Mech Fight isn't Mortal Kombat or Street Fighter, Tekken. I'm aware of fighting game lore. This isn't one of those games that has a deep fighting game lore. Right. So, on to the next one, which is Downtown Niketsu March Super Awesome Field Day.
AKA Kunio-kun Sports.
And one of the first one?
Okay, yes.
Yeah, you can't just say Kunio-kun Sports, because Kunio had a lot of sports games. In fact, we saw some of those over here. Back in the NES days. This wasn't one of them.
Yeah, some of those sports games with character sprites that look suspiciously like Kunio-kun characters, if you know what you're looking for, yeah, it's because they were.
Yeah, but like Nintendo World Cup, for example, like Kunio-kun plays soccer. Trying to remember, trying to remember one of the other ones. I think it was like Crashing the Boys.
I know that is also a band in Scott Pilgrim, so probably.
Yeah, that was another sports Kunio-kun sports game, just not this one. And Super Dodgeball is another Kunio-kun sports game that came over here. This one, for whatever, for ostensibly whatever reason, but I think when we get into the game, you'll be able to see why this game never came over. Because, just from all of the footage I've seen, this game is kind of a mess. We should probably get into it.
That is a lot of Japanese.
Yeah. I'm like,
何人でプレイする number of players. チームを変更しますか? Do you want to change teams? One player, Netketsu team, computer player, Hanazono team, computer player, Reiho team, computer player, Rengo team.
We have a cheat code. We have somebody who can understand Japanese.
A little bit.
More than we can.
Uh-huh. So presumably their school is actually literally hot blood high.
Probably. I mean, this is a shonen game, not Shonen Jump, but it's something that the Kunio-kun games have been notable for, the hot-bloodedness.
I don't know that much about the lore of this game. I haven't actually played River City Girls, and those are the first games that have been... I mean, I've played some of it, but I didn't have a friend to play with, and I'm not good at it. And those are the first friggin' games that got localized here that I feel actually, cared at all about the Kunio-kun lore.
Well, obviously. Because that was the thing about Kunio-kun back in the day. Not only did the lore not get cared about, the Kunio-kun games were, or rather the first Kunio-kun game, Renegade, was very heavily localized. Because one of the influence is on Kunio-kun was the 1970s and 1980s school delinquent culture. I'm trying to remember what they were called. There's a specific name.
It's not just Bancho, but the Bancho is the head guy.
Yeah, Bancho, and I know Sukaban is
the girl version. Yeah,
you know what I'm talking about, though. Mm-hmm. There's a name for it, but I can't remember. It's gonna bug me all night now.
It might actually be Bancho generically,
possibly. But that was a big theme in the original Renegade Kunio-kun game. But that's something that wouldn't have really translated over to the West. Eventually, the art style, and we did eventually get River City Ransom, which has a lot more of the Bancho theme.
So apparently, sometimes they just use Yankee or possibly Yeah, I think Yankee is probably the one they would use.
Yeah. But yeah, like the game Renegade was much more about crime-ridden 1980s New York, which was a fairly common setting in popular culture, mainly due to the fact that New York City was a bit of a shithole in the 1980s. Maybe not as bad as the 70s, but yeah, the urban decay was real. The crime was real. There's a whole treatise in that direction that we don't have time for or the bandwidth. But, by the time of this game here, like, sorry, it's a bit, the full thing here is a bit of a mouthful. Like, so I'm just going to call it Field Day.
Mm-hmm.
Like, but by the time that Field Day got released in general, we were getting Kunio-kun games in their art style. That distinctive square jaw, square everything, art style. Like
kind of scrunched up, which is a good pose for fighting.
Mm-hmm. And like Nintendo pushed some of the entries, like even like naming one of them after themselves. Like I said, I can see why Field Day here didn't get a Western release, because this is on the weaker end of Kunio-kun games. Like, because in spite of the disparity of genres, Kunio-kun is usually a quality release. This, maybe not awful, but it's definitely looking like a bit of a hot mess in comparison to, say, River City Ransom or Super Dodgeball. Like, hell, Petty's stopped playing the game
because my eye hurts too much.
No, that's understandable. We're kind of done with this, aren't we? Like, and I'm thinking we're good enough to wrap up the episode.
Okay.
As I said, it's just been kind of a messy week. Mainly dealing with, Petty is our stream operator, so when he's suffering an ailment, the whole show kind of suffers an ailment.
A little bit.
I hope I'm better by this weekend, because this sucks.
Yes, it does. And that gets us to the week ahead. So we have a new episode of Moonhawk Studios Presents happening in about 20-ish minutes, let's say. No Friday show this week. So hooray for that, I suppose. And in terms of the Sunday reviews, we'll be having reviews for Tiny Witch, Idle Zoo Park, Side to Side, and Sword and Soldiers 2, Sawarmageddon. So
what again?
Sawarmageddon. Look, it's kind of a mouthful to pronounce.
No, I'm just trying to mentally parse the spelling on that.
You can look on the...
yeah, I know. That occurred to me halfway through my sentence.
Anyway, so until next time, I shall wish you good gaming.